Chevra Torah. Amen.
So I see Stacy, I see Donna, I see Merle. Hi, Susie. Rebecca, I haven't seen you since last night. So that David, I will have an answer to your question during the class. Okay. Eric, I see. Risa Reyna. Arthur.
Hi.
You offered a beautiful comment last night, and I won't forget it. It was a beautiful comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Miller. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Cindy. Barbara. Mara, where's Harvey?
He'll be here very soon.
We were talking to granddaughter Maya, and I didn't know this happened in her classes at university. They take points off the grade if you come in late. It's not like nursery school. I don't know. Okay, so in any event, hi Doris.
Hi, Rabbi.
Chag Sameach, Effie, hi. Risa, I did not bring the Snapple. I'm going to need it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Cindy, hi. Hi, Cindy, Steve, Barbara, Mara, I lost. Okay, Zax. Hi, Zax. Larry's here. Diane, I missed you. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
You know that you cannot miss a week without my noticing.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Glad to be back.
Okay. Hi, Donna. How are you? How are you doing? Did anyone tell you have the greatest smile and you use it to communicate a variety of feelings, which is what you did Monday evening, whatever the other evening? Your smiles communicate. It's fascinating. Howard, hi, Shabbat Shalom. Jeff, really good to see you. Shabbat Shalom. Dukasa.
Hi.
You look much more relaxed, absolutely more relaxed. That's good. Then the last time we were together, Tamara, Tamara, you and I have a conversation. I read through much of the book, and the book that we shared on evil, and I fell asleep every 5 minutes. It was interesting. Okay, but it was boring as hell. Anyway, it's good to see you.
Rabbi, that's not a good comment for generating sales.
Yeah, right. Yeah, thanks, Steve. There's no current events class this Wednesday. Okay, this noon Wednesday, the current events class is canceled. Something is happening Wednesday evening. I forget what it is, but it gets in the way. So it will resume April 19th. April 19th will resume. First Seder, of course, April 5th. April 13th is Yizkor at Wilshire, okay? Just so that you have it all down. Cindy, update us, please.
Yeah, well, this is April, and we got a good month planned. On April 11th, we're having for women happy hour. I don't know the place yet, but I will have it by next week. All women are welcome. Susan Nanas.
Except for Rappy.
He's busy. Well, yeah, he could come. He's an honorary sisterhood member. He pays dues, actually. Susan Nanas had asked Sisterhood to plan an ethnic dining and this is not sisterhood, it's adult programming. It's going to be at Rosalind's Ethiopian restaurant on the 17th at noon. It'll be family style with 12 different Ethiopian dishes to taste. On the 25th, Sisterhood will be celebrating Israel's 75th birthday party at Nua restaurant. This is going to be a total Israeli feast, again, family style. There'll be 4 appetizers to taste, 4 main courses, 3 desserts, lots of vegetarian options, and we've submitted it. Hopefully it'll be in the weekly very soon. I don't know with Passover what they'll do. On the 27th at 7 p.m., we have an armchair Zoom adventure to Prague that everybody is welcome, unlimited registration. So we hope you'll tune in and see that. And on the 28th, we have our monthly dinner at Froman, Shabbat dinner. Susie will be away. So if you want to come, let me know and I will put you on the reservation list.
Okay, so what you're really telling us that Sisterhood and Women of Wilshire don't have anything cooking in April, right? It's just sort of like,
We're going.
okay. Risa, if you go to the Ethiopian lunch,
Yeah, bring you food, I know.
bring,
No, I think that's adult programming. So I think men are welcome.
I love Ethiopian food. Okay.
Only adult men.
What day is that, Cindy?
On the 17th, it's a Monday. And that's Rabbi Nanas is chairing. Well, Marilyn and I are planning it, but she's in charge of it. That'll be $30 for the 12 different samples.
So,
Thank you, dear.
it was the first time I had a meal in Ethiopia, and they handed me this injera, whatever this.
There will be an unlimited injera.
Yeah, but then what people do, everyone takes this piece of bread and everyone dips it into the same pot. And then when they've had it, they dip it again.
That's
I
fantastic.
really enjoyed that. That was very challenging. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll pick you up. Tell me what time.
Okay, Harvey, good to see you. Welcome back. Jim Ruxin. Now, I
Yes.
have a thing here. 7:30 p.m. Film Society, Method to the Madness of Jerry Lewis. Jim Ruxin.
Well, this is a fun documentary about the path of his career from a vaudeville singer at age 5 up until his partnership with Dean Martin through their very successful years as performers, and then his successful career as a film director and innovator in the world of film. And he did lots of other things that aren't included in the film, but it's a very playful look at his life and his work. And the witnesses that we have in the film are Steven Spielberg, Jerry Seinfeld, Carol Burnett, Billy Crystal, Eddie Murphy. These are all comedian entertainers who were influenced by him and who also grew up with him, as I suspect most of us did as well. And
It sounds good, Jim. Do we know anyone responsible for making that?
No, we really don't, but it's some really smart people did. And it's a real triumph in film editing and documentary production, because it has the interview subjects talk to the clips from Jerry's films, and then the clips talk back to the subjects, and Jerry's included in that conversation as well. So it's very playful integration of historical photographs, the clips from the old films, and the current people who were influenced by him. And there's footage that hasn't been seen before from his personal archive. When he traveled around the country in buses, remember those years in the 50s, the press tour was a bus tour. And in every city that he went to, he pitched the telethon and had his own photographer follow him, and they shot 16mm documentary film in black and white. So we have all this footage of him behind the scenes pulling strings to get the telethon screened in various communities, as well as opening their show in many communities.
So that's tonight, 7:30, Jerry Lewis documentary.
But Doris Rubelson knows more about it than I do, so.
I watched it. No, Jim, I think you need to tell us your part of the show.
That's
Well,
what I asked, and he deflected.
I didn't want
Yes,
people.
mentioned the end of the movie.
Where can you watch it?
It's on Amazon Prime.
I watched it on Prime last night. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move on, but Jim, your humility is noted, not well regarded, but noted. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna move now to checking in, and I have a check-in, and I'm just gonna have to let this flow the way it flows. in my role over the centuries as a rabbi, I've had occasions to interact with people in every imaginable, every conceivable life cycle, family, human experience. This week, I was aware of something incredibly painful. And the only way I can attempt to make something good come of this is by sharing with you a brief request. When you hear of anyone who is thinking about acting strangely, behaving in such a way that you are concerned that suicide might be on the menu, please, 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 do not let the situation sit. You are not required to heal or counsel, but the suicide hotlines or doctors, whichever way you go, please react early and clearly to that. Sometimes it can save a life. In this particular circumstance, the people who knew did not report, and the individual, in fact, committed suicide. And all that I can do with this is to ask you to remember, we see all these notes on television. If you hear, please contact, and it passes by. This week, it didn't pass by my life. Okay? So I'm sorry for the seriousness of the sharing, but yeah, I think it's really important. And thank you for allowing me to do that. Any other checking in? Any other checking in? Howard?
Rabbi, are you giving out the numbers for the hotline? I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
No, I don't have it. I'm sorry. But there is suicide hotline. It will not be hard to find. Howard?
My grandchildren are current, and their parents are currently in the country of Bahrain, and hopefully coming back in a few days. So, whatever. Seems important to me.
Is there any place in the world they haven't been, Howard?
Cool.
I'll get back to you on that one.
Forget the question. That's great. That's good. Any other sharing? Diane?
And my grandson got published again, and I can't even read the title. It's called Design, Fabrication, and Testing of a Water-Cooled Tungsten Foam High Heat Flux Plasma Facing Module. If you understand any of that, you're a better man than me.
Okay.
He's an engineer.
And if anyone can repeat it, put it in the chat. There will be a special reward for you if you can actually quote the title. Okay, I see Mara or Harv or
Yeah, I have a new poem out in the Amethyst Review.
A poem. Tell us about it.
It's getting like regular. That's fantastic. Anyone else? If not, we're going to go on. Okay, it is so good to see you. Seder is coming up this coming Wednesday evening, and I'm glad. Howard, do you have your hand up again, or is it still? It's still. Okay. Once again, I would say, and we've had success. I have been contacted by a few people looking for a Seder, and apparently we have been successful in meeting those needs. And just want to make sure that everyone is properly Sedered. or whatever. This is Shabbat HaGadol. This is Shabbat HaGadol. This is the great Sabbath. Today, this morning, the most wonderful morning of the liturgical year, the morning in which rabbis are encouraged to preach at length. And I think that it is a glorious thing. The rabbis are supposed to go over all the laws of Passover, and we look forward to it. But along with the regular Torah reading, which is Tzav, we're not going there right now. It's the second Sedra in the book of Leviticus. Along with that, we have a very special Haftarah, which is Malachi, or in Hebrew, Malachi. And in it, we have the promise of Elijah coming to herald the great Gadol Shabbat, the Shabbat HaGadol, the great Sabbath. And this is how Elijah works his way into the Passover event. Fine. Leviticus is mainly about sacrifice. I want to have with you, I looked it up in Google, so it's the right way to say it, a meta conversation about sacrifice. We're going to go to the text when we have a chance, but I want to open up for an intentional conversation with you. We often fail to do that, and I trust you. So my question for the intentional meta conversation is, why do people sacrifice? It is an open mic. I just would like short responses so that a number of people can respond. We're reading a book heavily connected with the korbanot, the sacrifices. Why do people sacrifice? Cindy?
I think they think it pleases God.
Thank you. Okay, I saw Merle, and then I saw Steve. Go ahead, please, Merle.
Is there some kind of guilt involved, or appeasing guilt? I can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, you sacrifice because you feel guilty and you think that the sacrifice will help your guilt feelings.
Okay, I'm going to move that from a question to a statement, and I'll put it on the menu. It's appropriate. It's right. Okay, Merle, Steve, please.
It's like a bargain. I'm giving up something and I expect something in return.
Okay, what do you call that?
A bargain,
Bartering.
What?
contract, a deal, whatever.
Transactional. Transaction.
Yeah, okay. There is that. Okay, Donna, and then Stacy.
Me, Rabbi?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's to show that you want to obey God and that you respect his commandments and that you honor his commands.
Thank you. Effie. No, sure. Stacy, then Effie.
Okay. I think there can be multiple reasons. I don't think it's one single reason, but I think that when someone thinks about someone else before themselves as one way of sacrificing.
Thank you. Thank you. Effie? No, you're muted, which is a delight, but Effie, you're muted. I'm not gonna. Okay, we'll go to Susie and maybe Effie will come back.
Effie is muted.
Susie. Effie.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, first of all, God says you should sacrifice in the
an
Bible.
act of obedience.
And why, when you say sacrifice, do you mean sacrificing an animal or do you mean sacrificing something to help somebody else?
Yes,
Both?
yes. Yeah, yeah. And but you're gonna hold with the same one answer for both. Okay, cool. Susie.
Okay, I think that a sacrifice is to make amends with God.
To make amends with God.
Yes, you want God to forgive you for something that you've done, so you sacrifice something.
Super. Okay. Any other people up here who want to offer why? Larry.
So I think sacrifice feels good in some way, that we're social beings and hardwired to feel some sort of gratification from sacrificing for others.
Super. Okay. Thank you. Eric.
I sacrificed my time and energy when my father got Alzheimer's. I wanted to take care of him in his home so we get superior care that nursing homes can do. Thank you very much.
That's good. That's good. Thank you.
Did I do good? Did I do good?
Yes, you did.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you. Okay, Doris, your hand up?
Yeah. What comes to mind is when I think of Lent, when people give up something they really, really, really like for example, you have to sacrifice something that you really like, and people give up their whatever their favorite thing is. So maybe that's the sacrifice. I don't know what you'd call it, but that's what happens.
It is. No, Doris, it is. That is a sacrifice. It is that. Okay. Okay. Oh, Zach's.
For me, it's recognizing that there's something greater than yourself. And also it's giving up something that you want, but it's also giving up something that you want so that you get what you need. So.
Okay, good. Now, Harvey, you're allowed to speak from that couple. Yes?
Okay, it could be just a simple Thanksgiving. So you could sacrifice something for being thankful.
That's good. We sometimes forget that, in fact, is a legitimate category of sacrifice. Thanksgiving. Marina.
I think sometimes it's also paying forward. Sacrifice as hoping for something better or asking for something better.
Super. Thank you, Sukasa. We're going to wrap this up pretty quickly. Sukasa?
Okay. If you think about a mother who would sacrifice eating so her child can eat, you can kind of put that, you have to, in the Torah, you have to sacrifice a perfect animal. Well, I'm sure that people would rather eat the perfect animal, but they're putting their own needs to the side for the greater good of pleasing God. And that's sort of like the same metaphor for a mother giving up something so that her child will have the benefit, or a father, by the way.
Thank you. Efforts at inclusion are deeply appreciated. Okay. First of all, did you notice there are all kinds of feelings, needs that we must find a way to express? All right, Steve, feeding the priests, yes. That's sort of cynical, but yes. Yeah, I mean, I believe in feeding the priests or their legitimate successors, the rabbis. Think about all the things that you properly said. All the things that we need to have expression for. The sacrificial system was designed in some way to reflect this. Sometimes when we read the boring, stultifying details of what goes on through a sacrifice, we skip the fact that the sacrificial system exists because people have needs. And as we listed, very different needs. So I have down here, we all experience guilt. That was one of the ones I wanted to bring up. We all do. How do we handle it? I want you to know that as a kid raised in a conservative home, I had nightmares about how do I fix it if I unintentionally eat a piece of bacon or something? What does a Jew do to get rid of that? And it was, the strange thing is that as I asked the people I respected so highly, the rabbinic authorities, the rabbis didn't take it seriously. But it was a serious question. How do I fix something that I did wrong unintentionally? How did I do that? And sacrifice was one of the ways. Another, and this was not sort of mentioned by you. How do we communicate with God? How do we do this? Hi, God. This is Stan down here in Santa Monica near the beach. How do we do it? Sacrifice was intended to be one of those ways to maintain a link with God. However we understand that, say, to maintain a link with creation. Sacrifice is a way of dealing with our needs, our fears, to offer appreciation. You said that. Another one which you did not yet mention, to ward off disaster. To ward off disaster. Something bad would, might be coming, and a sacrifice is offered to push that away, because otherwise we feel helpless. According to Jonathan Sacks, Rabbi Dr. Lord Jonathan Sacks, you want to guess when the first occasion of sacrifice happened in the Torah? Tamara, you're nodding your head. Donna?
With Isaac?
Isaac would fit, but it's not the first. Okay, Tamara.
Cain and Abel.
Cain and Abel, yep.
Geez, I can't do anything that I find exciting that you don't know. But it was, Cain and Abel. What did Cain do to Abel? He killed him.
Killed him. He killed him, yeah. Was that a sacrifice?
In the book of Genesis, in the story of Cain and Abel, Cain says something to Abel, but there's no text. We have no idea. There's a hole. We call that a lacuna. There's a hole. Lord Sacks put it this way. Cain didn't have his sacrifice accepted the way Abel's was. So Cain viewed Abel as very precious to God. And therefore, Cain killed Abel as a sacrifice to God. Tamara, you're saying no.
Well, it doesn't work with the story because sacrifice means you offer it to God. And Cain didn't offer Abel to God. He buried Abel so no one will know and had to be confronted. So I'm afraid I have to disagree with our venerable Lord Rabbi Dr. Sachs.
I don't know if we're allowed to disagree with people who are dead. It's not fair, but he can't respond. But he saw, that's how he understood the Cain and Abel phenomenon. Other people, there's an interesting phrase in the Torah. Every once in a while, you offer a sacrifice, reach nichoach, a pleasing odor. The image you get is that some of the sacrifices are sweet smelling and lovely, and God is, forgive all this, sitting up in heaven and, ooh,
barbecue steaks.
when I walk the Strand, and if it's near noon, all the restaurants are cooking. And you walk along, and I experience reach nichoach, a beautiful, pleasing scent. So sometimes you do that, and I don't think that we deal with a God who enjoys sweet-smelling sacrifices. But it says so in the Torah. Now here we're going to get to the substance. Many people who analyze sacrifice assert that human beings are by their nature violent. And that one of the purposes of sacrifice is to channel the violent impulse into an acceptable channel.
Victim and Hunger Games and
so that people who would really like to smash things, murder things, destroy things, the word I would use is sublimate. I may be using it incorrectly, I don't think so, but to sublimate our violent impulses into slaughtering an animal, shedding blood, and that by shedding blood, we are reducing our own internal pressures to do violence.
Rabbi, may I say something?
Stacy.
Wanted to, I wanted to follow up, ask you a question, Rabbi, when you mentioned one of the things about sacrifice, which is to ward off something that you fear that's coming that could be, problematic. But my reaction to that, or my observation about that, is those may be things you have absolutely no control over, because if something is happening in the future, unless you have direct control over it, how is that supposed to be effective? I mean, part of, for me is looking at what things I can control and what things I can't control. I can't control other people's behavior, and there's a whole host of things. So I just was curious if you could, respond to that in sort of a question about it.
2 or 3 weeks ago, I saw my first tornado. We were walking on the Strand, and then deep to the south, we saw the tornado cloud. And of course, we didn't quite believe it. Is that a tornado? I don't know. I've never seen a tornado, It was a tornado. I watched on television during the week, there were several, horrible events. And one newscaster was live as a tornado was hitting, forgive me, a Mississippi town, I believe. And the person said, "Sweet Jesus, save them," and put his head on the desk. Stacy, you raised the question about things from my theological perspective, those words had absolutely no impact on changing what was happening.
I see.
But the need to try when all things are failing still happens.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, and I understand that. Sublimation. Some of you are aware that there are programs involving violence on television or in the movies. Why do so many of us enjoy watching violence on television? Sometimes when we come to our 1 hour of television viewing, Risa says, "What are you up for tonight?" And Risa, what do I say?
I don't know.
Lots of killing.
I don't know if I say, yeah, I guess lots of killing. I live in a world in which things are constrained. And watching that hour of television in which there is make-believe slaughter relaxes me. If any of you are psychiatrists, please save your comments, but contact me personally. Okay, Tamara, you had your hand up? Okay, Steve Miller?
Well, I was going to say, as far as watching violence, I think it varies from person to person. I don't mind violence when it's an integral part of the message being communicated, or it's, gladiator, whatever. But then there's just violence like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I have no interest in seeing. I don't watch it because I want to see the violence. I watch shows for the overall content. And if that happens to include violence and killing, that's okay with me if it serves that purpose.
Okay, so I'm going to quote a famous adage by a great American humorist. You're not going to exactly quote it. Charlie Brown, you make your choices. I deal with some of this way. Some people really believe, scholars and academics, that part of what is going on in the sacrificial system is an effort to sublimate human inclinations to violence. Okay, I see Risa, I see Arthur, I see Tamara, and okay, Donna. Risa, you had your hand up, but Arthur.
The humans who like violence and do not do it when they see this demonstration of their desire being manifested, and they enjoy. That is one of the reasons that we enjoy violence, seeing them or watching them.
Do you remember boxing matches? Wrestling, football. It's there. Tomorrow.
Yeah, let me make 2 points. One, sacrifices was the most universal practice for every ancient culture that we know of. So there was nothing unique about the Bible insisting on sacrifices. The unique is how you do it and when you do it. But it seemed to have been for some of the reason, violence being one, sublimation that is being one. But there are practical reasons for biblical sacrifices. In Leviticus, you cannot eat any meat until or unless part of the animal has been offered to God. So if you were going to have meat, you had to share it. You had to share it with God, and you had to share it with the priest, and you had to share it with community. The other thing is that the animals most often sacrificed are male animals. And there was a time when we first started looking at things as feminists, and people said, what's wrong with female animals? Shouldn't we, are they saying females are less holy than male? And the actual reason is the opposite. You need fewer males to propagate the species. You don't want to sacrifice a cow, because a cow is both produces more and milk, etc. So it's a way of managing, if you will, the herd. I don't think these are reasons for why people sacrifice, but they are perhaps some aspects of how sacrifices are used and why people did them, as well as in this specific way. So I thought I'll share that.
Thank you. I never thought I'd be teaching Chevra Torah and feel threatened at the same time. Rita, I'm still useful. Please, I am still useful. I can't think of why. Okay, Donna.
I was just gonna say I can't watch Criminal Minds because I know it's based on a true story. I can't watch horror films. I do like watching them get rid of Hitler. Well, I'm glad Hitler's gone. I would like to see them get rid of Hamas. I'd like to watch a movie about that, but I really don't care. I love romance and comedy. I can't deal with it. I don't deal with it.
Okay, thank you. Brad?
Yeah, Rabbi, I was just thinking about the origin of the word sacrifice, which comes from saker, which means holy, and fakere, which is to make holy. So when we're talking about violence, it seems like we've strayed pretty far from the idea of holiness.
We have indeed. The scholars of sacrifice. Now here we're not talking about the meal offerings or, bringing grains, fruits. Say that we human beings need ways. When we say we don't mean every single human being, and obviously people are different. We need ways to control the violence that flows through our DNA. And sacrifice, or going in Rome and watching the gladiators, whatever it was, we need ways to lift socially unacceptable behaviors so as to maintain the structure of society. Here was an interesting statement: conversion of an initial impulse by human beings toward violence. We could say, wait a second, Stan, that's not Jewish. And then, of course, I would turn to one of my favorite quotes, because it was in my bar mitzvah portion. V'chol yetzer machshavot libo rak ra kol hayom. All of the thoughts of the human heart are just totally evil. V'chol yetzer machshavot libo rak ra kol hayom. That's in Genesis. That wasn't invented by Siggy Freud. That's in Genesis. What do we do with that? These people claim that this whole emphasis on animal sacrifice is to find ways to substitute for what we really want to do. You've read stories about people. Diane, are you unhappy? Okay, Diane, would you please be unhappy?
I must be very much an outlier because I don't agree with the anger and the punishment at part of sacrifice. I think we're all different. I think to try and put us in one pot is not true. I think you might define sacrifice one way, but I don't look at it that way. I look at sacrifice as giving up for somebody else and pleasing somebody else. I don't look at it as anger and abuse and punishment. So everybody's different. I think you can't put us all in one pot.
I thank you for the caution and the criticism. I tried to say limiting terms, some, and I accept what you're saying. Steve, you just listed on the chat some television programs like The Purge and other things, which very much had that. Tamara mentioned football, where people just go banging each other, and people enjoy watching it. My favorite, Diane, this is for you. Okay, Diane, here, let me talk to you, Diane.
Thank you. I'm listening, but I can't imagine banging heads as being a sacrifice.
Okay, I have a good thing for you.
Yes.
Some people have said that fasting is a form of sacrifice because we lose fat. And if we fast for a purpose, I like that. You know, I am offering up my fat as a gift to God for 24 hours. No, that didn't
that
work.
easy.
I thought, okay, that didn't work either. I'm going to summarize my point and then turn to you for brief comments. We're going to move on. There are significant scholars who say animal sacrifice tries to restore or maintain harmony in society. And that again is the issue of sublimation. We'll do quickly. Risa, then we have Rebecca, then we have Larry and Steve. And Jeff. Okay, right across the top of my screen. Risa.
I just want to know how the sacrifice of a small piece of challah dough fits into all this.
Okay, is that a subtle way of saying that I'm full of baloney? I accept that. Part of what we do, the word challah doesn't mean the bread. The challah is the little twist of dough you throw into the oven and burn as a sacrifice. And Risa, what you want me to say is, I've been focusing on animal sacrifice, and there are many kinds of sacrifices. But animal sacrifice, in my mind, is the biggie. Giving up something for someone else, giving up Lent, for meat for Lent, fish, whatever. All those count. But the blood is a very powerful presence all through the Torah. The blood is there. When the priest is being consecrated, what do? blood on the toe, thumb, and ear, right? Is part of how the priest is consecrated. The blood is life. The shedding of blood is not incidental. Okay, but I'm going to go on. Please, Rebecca, Larry, Steve, Jeff.
When I listen to the discussions on sacrifice and violence, what comes to my mind is value and judgments that we're making when we talk about these subjects. So I'm not condoning violence, but for example, I love the show Yellowstone, which is really violent, but these people are making sacrifices and killing other people to maintain their way of life. So when we talk about sacrifice and violence, I think we also need to consider people's value systems.
Okay, Rebecca, could I just say something very quickly? My wife, who severely disagrees with my choice of how to spend my 1 hour, loves Yellowstone, but I'm not going to connect this, okay? No, because she condemns me because she's wrong. Okay, Larry.
So I think the world is a very violent place, and whether it's human on human violence or wild animals or just sort of natural phenomenon that are incredibly, incredibly violent and scary. We live in a very violent place. And the stories we tell ourselves that talk about violence or the actions that we channel violence into are, I think, ways to help us control something that's literally uncontrollable. And if animal sacrifice and bloodletting seems to me to be a fairly straightforward way of people trying to exert some control over the violence they see all around them.
Great. I mean, great. That means I agree with you. Great, Larry. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
I was going to say my list actually was not films of violence that serve that purpose for us, but they are all films where the premise illustrates this point. And they all are an attempt to show a society's solution to violence by creating a single outlet that will replace war, individuals, breaking the law, hurting and killing each other, and doing it at a societal level.
Great. That's sublimation, straightforward. That's it. That's great. Okay. I'm losing track.
We talked about sacrifice. I should add that Muslims have a different view in that regard. Each year, millions of animals are being slaughtered. Some of the companies had proposed to Muslims, let us take these, freeze it, and distribute it free for Africa. They rejected. They didn't want the slaughtered animal be used. That I wanted you to know.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, I think this discussion has merely confused a lot of aspects of the topic of sacrifice. And we could talk about theories of drama and catharsis and bathos and pathos, which is related to what we're talking about. But I think to try to put things in proper historical context, there's a difference talking about Levitical sacrifice and the topics that you bring up that are very contemporary in terms of what we do with our feelings about violence. And to kind of connect the two, I was looking through Everett Fox, and if I might just read a couple sentences of his to connect what our thinking might have led to, because he talks about how the text present a variety of motives and occasions for sacrifice, from thanksgiving to purification and reparation. But in general, one may say of Israel's sacrifice, as one may say of much of the ritual in Leviticus, it's designed primarily to maintain or repair the relationship between God and Israel. And here's the important part. The fact that this reconciliation, as it were, takes place against a background of slaughter should not be as upsetting to moderns as it usually is felt to be. In ironic contrast to our mechanized and mass-produced society, where the killing of animals for food takes place at a remove from our consciousness and from our direct participation, the sacrificial system, in fact, involved worshiper and priest alike, and the symbolic value of the operation, whatever it may have been in specific cases, lay in its directness, in its consciousness of the taking of life. Some would even maintain that in societies where the practice and rationale for sacrifice has broken down, there is inevitably an increase in intrahuman violence. The end.
Jeff, I wasn't going to mention all about Eve, okay? Because I don't do things like that. Why would I do that? My feeling is that the last sentence you read totally validated what I was saying.
I agree. I just was trying to make the connection because
I appreciate that. You do good.
we were hopping back and forth among the centuries, and I think there was some confusion between what was historically understood to be the case and what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and just, boy, I have to finish up. I have something I must share. I promised David. You did a great job. Thank you for that. Thank you for quoting Everett Fox quoting. David Trainer asked me, what does all this sacrificial stuff, David, I'm sort of twisting it around, have to do with liberal Judaism? And where do we connect in with it? And my answer, which I forced myself to write down, liberal thinkers try to extrapolate from these texts the concerns and the needs that people actually have. When you look to all of the reasons, Everett Fox, others, the stuff we mentioned, people who are liberal look at the sacrificial text and look at what is really important, the why, the needs that are being met, and the kavanah, the intention. That below this is dealing with emotional issues. Liberal thinkers at the top level can say, study Leviticus, learn what needs people have, and check out whether your religious institutions are dealing with real human needs. Okay? And so this is how liberal Jews who value the Torah can find benefit and purpose. Notice that Reform Judaism removed prayers for the reestablishment of sacrifice. And my last brilliant thought is kavanah is crucial. Why we do what we do is extremely important to understand what's unfolding in front of us. I can teach, Leviticus, because it says when you have a need to thank God, do this. When you have a need to remove guilt, do this. When you have a need to express joy, do this. When you are worried, frightened, scared, feeling pain, do this. What I love to do is not to figure out how exactly to sprinkle the blood, but how to evaluate our own religious institutions to ask, are you still dealing with fundamental human needs? So that's kind of how I would approach it. I'm going to move on to Kaddish. I've never done this before. I've never had this opportunity in which I trusted a group to raise these kinds of questions. Risa, you're going to force your way in even though I'm trying to close? Oh, your hand is still up and you didn't remove your hand. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. I even have David's email to me in which I tried feebly to respond. We're going to move to Kaddish. And before you all disappear, please my bookcase just attacked me. Have a wonderful Chag Sameach. Have a beautiful, beautiful festival observance. Please remember what I said at the beginning about being responsive to certain kinds of human needs. Okay? We mentioned those. Did I say I love you? Yeah, okay. Those who have passed away during the past month: Sylvia Bialik, Norman Epstein, Lucas Foster, Judith Susan Gelb, Donna Golden, Ron Gordon, Homer Gurin, Sharon Levy Jaffe, Ruth Kalin, Joseph Joey Klein, Phyllis Kogan, John Levi Jr., Ronald Schiff, Fran Shanbram, Richard Sutkin, Dina Tasla, Suzanne Tizabi, Joan Vogel, and the following, the yahrzeits of whom occurred during this past week: Max Ackerman, Leonard Scott Barkin, Danya Berezovsky, Eugene Bernstein, Aaron Birkin, Julian Burton, Anna Chinsky, William Avram Kopen, Marvin Derovin, Devora Disner, Sue Dorf, Arkady Adidovich, David Eldinger, Hyman Eller, Wally Esakov, Raymond Feldman, Jack Feldman, Robin Feldman, Isaac Abraham Fogelman, Dave Fox, Beth Fried, Ruth Fromovitz, Bill Gilbert, Gladys Ginsburg, Nicholas Glutkin, Fred Stanley Goldman, Mary Gordon, Elizabeth Gottlieb, George Grant, Charles Greenberg, Isidore Greenberg, Mark Greenstein, Ruth Grosser, Marvin Grover, Eleanor Haas, Nuri Habibian, Theodore Hartstein, Judith Heim, Betty Heisler, Ruth Hoffman, Hyman Hoffman, Adolf Eichmann, Regina Marco, Judy Jaffe, Inez Johnson, Fleming Josephson, Edmund Sigmund Kahn, Joan Kamenow, Marilyn Keith, Diana Kind, Robert Klein, Doug Klein, Sally Kobrin, Belle Lazarowitz, Margot Lee, Dorothy Levin, William Levitt, Sandy Linka, Marjorie Gold Magid, Susan Mahler, Nancy Sackett Mandler, Patrick John McCormick, Hugo Melvoin, Dorothy Miller, Samuel Minter, Hal Minter, Milton Naduman, Millie Newman, Gahan Baba Normand, Albert Nussbacher, George Pollack, Grace Pollack, Boris Porter, Jerry Price, Martin Pullman, Max Renoff, Elizabeth Resnick, Bernard Roth, Nina Rothenberg, Dorothy Rothman, Grace Rubenstein, Marshall Sapphire, Clara Satnick, Walter Sauter, Sarah Schimmer, James Schlesinger, Shirley Schwartz, Rosina Schur, Leah Siegel, Wally Sloan, Inga Smidrisman, Edmund Somech, Ruby Gant, Springle, Walter Stearns, Marie Traub, Eleanor Uslan, Norma Wachman, Francis Weiner, DeVero Weiss, Richard Weissman, Milton Wolfe, Rocio Wyckoff. I apologize for the mispronunciations. If you have names that I omitted or names that you would like spoken more correctly, please speak them out loud now or speak them in your hearts. We bear in mind now also the names of all of those who died in defense of the United States of America, those who died in defense of the state of Israel, those who died through senseless acts of horror, those who died in pain, those for whom there is no one else to say Kaddish. We join in Kaddish for all of them. Yitgadal,
No.
Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'alma Va'chirutei, Yamlich Malchutei, V'chaye Chon of Yomecho, V'chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, V'agala V'zman Karev, V'imru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevarach, La'alam L'yomei Omaya, Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yitpa'ar, Yitramam, Naseh, Yitakar, Yitalev, Yitalo, Shemei Dekudisha, Richu, La'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata, Tushbachata B'nechem, Damiran V'alma V'imru,
Amen.
and Yehi Shlama Rava, in Shemaya, L'chaim Aleinu, Israel V'imru,
Amen.
Oseh Shalom V'imru, Ya'aseh,
Shalom.
Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael,
Israel.
V'imru.
Amen.
Amen. May God who makes peace in the high places make peace in our hearts, make peace in our homes, make peace among all the families and nations of earth. May God make peace among all those who are brokenhearted. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen.
Thank
Chag Sameach, everybody.
Barbara,
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you,
Shabbat
Rabbi.
Sameach, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Bye, Merle. Bye, Merle.
Bye. Take care.
Love you,
Bye,
special.
Shalom.
Thank you.
Keep
Thank you.
believing.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.